We are live. All right, what's up, everybody? It's your man, Big Stowe. We got Nora on the left here, and this is Office Hours, episode 9, where we talk about newsletters tonight. And yeah, we're excited to get into it. And how you doing today, Nora?
I'm good. It's been a little rough day. My anxiety's been anxietying. Which actually, so I was thinking we might want to do, I think it'd be useful to do an office hours on like anxiety and mental health and how the personal often impacts our like professional work and output and stuff.
Right.
Absolutely. So if anyone's interested in that, if you're watching this and you're like, yes, please do that episode, just tell us in the comments. But actually, in good news, it's the 1-year anniversary of us getting Push. Push, my French bulldog, who sometimes joins our office hours. So we've had him for a whole year now. I got him a year ago today. And so I was looking at like baby pictures of him or like puppy pictures and stuff. So I think we're going to get him some like special treats and celebrate later.
Oh yeah. It's our team mascot there. Perfect.
How are you doing, Stowe?
I'm doing all right. I'm hanging in there. I'm extremely exhausted, but we keep pushing on.
Yeah. So folks, welcome to Office Hours. This is a regular series that Stowe and I do to make quality, practical, tangible information about entrepreneurship in the music industry accessible to people creating art and culture. Thanks, Dan. Dan says that'll be a great topic for another Office Hours. Thank you. And so as you're joining us today, please feel free to send in any questions, participate in the conversation with us. If this is your first time, please subscribe. We like this to be as interactive as possible. So, and if you watch this after the fact and have questions, feel free to ask your questions in the comment sections because we'll come back and answer them. Like I said, Stowe and I are here to be resources. My name is Nora. I'm a creative consultant. I have a background in managing artists and producing festivals. And now I work one-on-one with artists to help you figure out what is success for you and what are the things you need to do to get there without giving up your money or creative control, and to use your platform for good. Stowe, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, what's up, everybody? You already know who it is. Big Stowe. Get a website. Quit goofing around. Writing, doing artist development stuff, and yeah, just making sure that, especially as the landscape is literally changing before our eyes, that you guys are ready to go.
Yeah, so we're talking about newsletters today. And to start it off with our first question, like, why newsletters? Why dedicate a whole conversation to newsletters? Why are they so important? And I think even more important than a website, maybe equally important, is to have a direct way to be in touch with your audience. So that if Instagram dies, if Twitter dies, if your Facebook crashes, that you have a way directly to talk to the people that you want to reach. And newsletters and email is the most direct, uninterrupted. There's no gatekeeper. There's no one in between. You're not relying on anyone. Are the most direct and reliable way to do that. People check their emails, regardless of what platform they're on. People check their emails multiple times a day. They're more likely to open an email. So it really is like a foundational piece it should be a foundational piece of your relationship with your audience. But so what's your take on it?
Yeah. The other thing is that like these days, especially, people are kind of like cleaning up their email accounts and stuff like that. They're only subscribing to things that they want to be a part of. And that data and all the data that you can get from newsletters, it's invaluable, yo. Like, I don't think people understand that, like, kind of, and we're going to jump into all the logic and all the stuff that goes into this. But again, when you have access to someone's email account and you're directly in their inbox, that's something they check multiple times a day. Even if sometimes maybe they don't necessarily engage or whatever, you know that they're interested. You know that they want to see and hear from you. So it's an invaluable tool, and we're going to get into it.
Yeah, it's also, I think we talk a lot about this on Office Hours, but how important it is to create an ecosystem around your fan base and your work as an artist and to build community. And so newsletters is a way to do that. It's a contained space where you and your audience are able to talk one-on-one. where you tell them the things you want them to know. You can direct them to the places right? Like Instagram doesn't let you use links. You could put 46 links in your newsletter if you wanted to. You can refer to other things. You know, it's really a blank canvas that you can make the most of. And so there's no gatekeeper. It's a direct way to build community with your audience. You can do all kinds of like special give. We'll talk about all that in a second. But the most important piece, and I want us to repeat it, is that it's something that you own, right? You don't own Instagram. You don't own Twitter. You don't own TikTok. But emails is something that you own. And so that that kind of direct communication is super, super critical. And that's where you can convert people from. It's a great place for conversion, because if they're opening your emails, you're already getting an indicator that they're curious or invested in you in a way that's very different from someone who's just casually scrolling, right? So that's newsletters are also a place of really good information. So, and curious for people as you're watching, do any of you have newsletters, and like I'd be curious to hear what your experience with newsletters are like as we're having this conversation. So feel free to share those in the comments. So like, let's transition a little bit into the logistics. Like, how do you set up a newsletter?
I mean, I feel like, and especially these days, there's a lot of different options that you have, whether it's through your website or through something like MailChimp or, damn it, what's it called? What do I even use? I use Substack for my newsletter. So there's a bunch of different options that you can use. And what goes into setting up, honestly, I feel like it's different for everyone. I know for me, I had to sit down and kind of plan things out or plan content out for a couple weeks in advance, just to kind of, I don't know. I think starting a newsletter can be a very intimidating task for some artists, especially when it comes down to like I get it, guys. Like, you want to just put out the music and get it out there. But when you take the time to do some of these other things, I know it takes a lot of time, but it's definitely worth it. So for me to kind of get the ball rolling or whatever, and get myself just into the process of doing it as often as I should, I planned out like 3, 4, 5 newsletters in advance, or at least writing down the ideas and things that you can put in the newsletter. What's up, Dynamic Jab? How's it going, man? I hope you're doing all right, staying safe out here. And, you know, planning that stuff out in advance, I feel like can give you enough traction to kind of keep going with it. And I think even just writing down your ideas, the ideas and things that you want to do in the newsletter, or what you want to accomplish in the newsletter, moving forward. Because I think what a lot of artists do is they'll start it up and they'll be like, all right, I got a couple people, and then they'll just let it die off, or won't remain consistent with the newsletter. And I think that can be intimidating as well. So I think if you can plan in advance, once you start seeing some results, I think that also kind of motivates you. So I think planning in advance is one of the most important. And then again, figuring out the best way to get that newsletter out. Because the other thing is, like, you know, maybe Substack isn't the best way to do it. Maybe, yeah, you may have a website, but maybe using MailChimp is the best way to get your newsletter out there. So definitely take the time to look at the different platforms and venues that you can use to get it out there.
Yeah, I think planning is important, right? So if you know that you're releasing an album in December, think about how many newsletters do you need to go back to start planting that seed, so that in December you can make that ask. So kind of thinking about that big picture. And this is true about your Instagram. We talk about this for other platforms. You can also always recycle your content. So what are you putting on Twitter? Maybe there's a highlight you want to take and put it in your newsletter, or pick one of your Instagram posts and build your newsletter around that. And we'll talk about that in a second when we get into content. The most important piece about a newsletter is there's no newsletter without emails. That's your currency. That's the thing. That's the bridge between you and your audience. So think about ways that you can start to collect people's emails. It can be as simple as a landing page, right? Someplace that says, hey, would you like to be part of my newsletter? Please give me your email address. Super simple, super straightforward.
Cardi B just did that. Sorry, my bad. Oh, geez. I'm
You
sorry.
okay
I'm
there?
having, my bad. Sinuses are acting up.
I mean, it doesn't have to be super fancy and super. It's just throw up a page. It can be, you can do giveaways. You know, anyone who signs up for this gets a graphic or get whatever, like giveaways. My homegirl has been building her. She just released a book. She sold like $3,500 in like pre-orders, which is amazing. I'm super proud of her. If anyone's interested in career change, check out Cynthia Pong's work. But she built her mailing list by doing book giveaways. And, you know, people would sign up and she'd do these giveaways. But she's also attracting people who like books to then sell her book to. So thinking about what is your audience into and how does that connect to the thing that you want to ask them to do for you later. Other ways to collect emails is anytime they buy merch from you, anytime they buy your album, anytime they, you know, anything like that is a way to collect emails. And so the first step is to start collecting emails. I think one simple missed opportunity is when people come on your website, throw a little pop-up.
Right.
Would you like to sign up for my mailing list? And people can X out, but if you don't ask, no one's going to give you their email. So getting into that habit, right, of making the ask so you can start collecting that information. Then to Stowe's point, there's a ton of options for MailChimp, so, you know, all these different places where you can create templates and put out the newsletter. The most important part is to think about what is it that you want your goal to be with the newsletter. And the most effective and successful newsletters are not the ones that sell.
Right.
Right. They're the ones that add value. They're the ones that, so think about like, what are you providing that's going to make people be excited to open your email? That's going to create the memory that, oh, last time I opened this was useful. So I'm going to open it again. Right. And that's thinking about what is it that you want to provide and communicate with your audience that you can't do in other platforms. And so a little bit of planning ahead. And then to your point, Stowe, of it's a lot of work and it could be really intimidating. If you can't commit to like a newsletter every week, that's fine.
Right.
Do it once a month. Do it every couple weeks. Like
no way am I doing every week. Hell no.
It's really once a week is a lot.
That's a lot.
It's really about the quality of what you're putting out versus quantity, especially in this place, because what you're looking for is click through. You're looking for open rates. And that kind of information is really valuable, right? We talk a lot about analytics. That kind of information, how many people are opening your emails? How many people are clicking on the things that you're asking them to click? That's often a greater indicator than how many followers you have of what your audience looks like, right? Because that's an interaction that you're having versus something passive. So there's a lot that goes into setting up a newsletter, but there's also a lot of information that you can pull that then you can use in other things, right? Anything else, so that you would add to that?
I had something, but I completely forgot. So sorry.
As folks are joining us, I just want to say hello and welcome. This is Office Hours with Nora and Stowe. If you have any questions or experiences with your own newsletters or other people's newsletters, even things that you're like, this was really great or this really sucked and I unsubscribed, you know, feel free to tell us about those in the comments, but definitely say hi and introduce yourselves. Were you going to say something, Stowe?
Yeah. No, I finally got it. It came back to me. While I don't like using myself as an example all the time, in my case, like with the label that I run with a couple of their homies, like we very rarely push our own music in that. We want it to be more so something that's like I'll post my keys in there and then we'll put a review or something else just to build that community. Again, guys, all these platforms, and I feel like one of the other questions we get, and I talked about this the other day, is like, cats are always like looking for the quickest way to get so many followers and, you know, what's the best app that we can use? Listen, it takes time to build up a community, and it definitely takes even more time to build up a community and then ask them to invest into you when you haven't earned that yet. Nora says this all the time. Oh, gee, I wonder if someone's awake. Mother of God. No.
He's protecting me. Someone's at the door.
I lost my train of thought again. Damn it.
That it takes time to build community.
Oh yeah, builds time to take community. Nora always says this all the time. You have to build the trust before you just ask, yo, buy my album just because. And again, especially with the state of things now, like people's money we ain't just spending money like that no more. Like people are worried about that kind of stuff. So if you're gonna ask them to spend money on your product, on your merch, on your album, you have to earn that.
Yeah.
And a newsletter is a good way to do that.
Well, and so like just to break down the way that trust process works, right? For me to say, okay, let me click this to listen to your song, to buy your album, you first have to get me to subscribe to your email list. You then have to get me to open the email. Then you have to get me to keep opening that email, which means you have to continue to provide content that I find valuable and that I click through so that I get into the habit of trusting you that, okay, Stowe is going to send me things that are useful. So that then when Stowe asks me to do something, I trust it.
Right.
Right. And that takes time. I mean, you all, if you think about in your everyday lives and your own experiences, if someone off the street was like, hey, bro, do this for me, you'd be skeptical.
Right.
But if they asked you and they built a relationship with you and then they asked you, you'd be much more likely to do it. Right. And so I feel like we say this all the time, but it's so important. Don't worry about the quantity. It's
right.
really in the early stages about the quality of relationships that you have, right? When you do something valuable, then other people start to talk about it, and that's how things naturally grow versus robots and like all these kind of fake numbers things where there's nothing to back it. And I feel like we say that every time, but we're going to repeat it because it's an important
right.
thing.
It has to be said. It absolutely has to be said.
So speaking of content, what makes for, and maybe that's a better way of asking this question around what should be in a newsletter. What makes for a quality newsletter?
I mean, listen, guys, like I feel like with stuff like this, and especially as an artist, there's so many different things that you can do and things that you can put in a newsletter. It doesn't have to be, and that's the other thing. A lot of people, when they hear a newsletter, they're like, oh my God, it's this huge block of text that I have to type up. It doesn't have to be that. It literally, I had a call the other day where I was talking about, yo, you could literally just do a photo of the day type deal. Maybe you were in the studio and you had an incredible session. Post a small little clip of that or a picture with a nice caption and, you know, maybe reflecting on that moment or something like that. Maybe another week it could be a playlist. Like it's literally anything that you can use to genuinely engage with the audience outside of listen to my music, run this up, or retweet this, all that jazz. You can do that on social media. Like this, the newsletter is an intimate space for people who have signed up for your newsletter and want to know more about you, the person, whether you're an artist, streamer, YouTuber, author, whatever it is. Like, and that's the other thing. Like, you don't have to be an artist to use a newsletter. Whatever content you're creating, you can create a newsletter on it. Because here's the other thing, and we talked about this at the top, is like social media is ever changing. The algorithm's always changing. You never know who's engaged, who's not. But the thing is, with the newsletter, if you have their email, that's stable. That's not changing. They are connected to you through that email forever, unless they decide to unsubscribe. So cultivating that personal relationship is kind of the key to, again, getting them to then purchase your record. So be as personable as you can, because you don't have to, it's not about, I don't know, like this facade or whatever. You don't have to be as you are on social media or whatever. It's about making that connection, bringing that intimacy into the relationship. And then that way, again, when that ask is made, it's no longer, I say this all the time, it's no longer this random crapshoot of, oh my God, I hope they listen to it. It's, I've been engaging with this audience for months now, and they are waiting for me to drop something for them to support. It's no longer this, please, Art, run this up so I can be verified on insert app here or whatever. Like that, none of that is necessary. And the last thing I'll say is this: is that with a newsletter, or I'm sorry, comparing it to social media, your average user is probably going to miss your post.
Right.
So having that content in a newsletter and having that fan then sign up there means they won't miss a thing. They won't miss an announcement when you need them to run this up. It'll be in their inbox because they have been connected to you for X amount of time. I feel like so many cats rely on social media as this primary vehicle to move news and stuff like that, and it does work like that. But if you have a newsletter and you have their email, bruh, that's a gold mine of data, like sitting there waiting for you to act upon it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the newsletter is having a one-on-one conversation, whereas social media is like just screaming into the void and hoping someone will hear you.
Exactly.
So a couple things. One, in terms of as you think about what should go into your newsletter, hopefully by now you know us well enough to know that you should have your niche figured out. What makes your audience unique? What do they need? What do they care about? And so looking at their needs and their motivations and their desires, their drives, you can create content that is responsive to that. So if they're gamers, talk about gaming. If they're sneakerheads, share your favorite shoes. If they're, academics, maybe there's a cool article or PDF you found you want to share. Think about what is it that they care about and then build your newsletter around that, right? You're there not to sell yourself, but to provide value to your audience based off of what their needs are. So use the niche information that you have to determine your content. Two is that in doing so, you have an opportunity to create a special space in your newsletter. It's totally okay if you want to just take the highlights from your social media and repurpose it. You also can create your newsletter as an exclusive place. Give away discounts, give away sneak previews, give away, special codes. Make it a community that gets access to things that they won't get elsewhere. And so that creates motivation, that creates incentive, but it also creates the feeling of being part of something special. They're seeing something that only they see because they gave you their email address and because they chose to open it. And so you can play with that, right? Think about, the way this shows up is in everything from how you greet your audience, right? Is it, hey, Stowe? Is it, what's up, Barbies? Is it like, what is the language that you're using? Because language helps create a sense of community and connection. So thinking about that. And if you think about some of your favorite artists, they're already using this. So that's the other piece.
They're already using it. They're already using it. Cardi B just did this. She just did this last night. I'm tired. I'm sorry, but I saw it last night and it exploded because she nailed it. She knocked it right out of the park. I couldn't believe it. I can't even believe I'm talking about it now. She knocked it out with the newsletter, knocked it out with the website. As soon as you click that button to try to buy a vinyl, she had a pop-up said sign up for the website. I'm sorry. I had to do it.
Let me say this. I get it. We started this conversation a little bit talking about anxiety. Sometimes this kind of shit is like overwhelming, right? And especially if you're doing it alone and it's like, it feels risky. It feels vulnerable. Like, what if people unsubscribe? What if they don't like it? Whatever. So perfectly 1,000,000% okay to do it in steps. If all you do is just start collecting emails for now, that's fine. You have those emails. You can sit on them for as long as you need to. If all you can do is get out one newsletter or one email that says, hey, I just really appreciate you for supporting me. Thank you for subscribing. Great. Wonderful. Like, it's perfectly okay to break it down into these smaller pieces. It doesn't, obviously we're talking about like best possible case that you all could do. But if you need to break it down, like allow yourself to do it in baby steps. The other thing is, this is a great place, like maybe writing isn't your strong suit, or maybe like this is a great place to think about how you can collaborate with someone. Maybe this is where you bring someone into, Tosh Scott says, good night. I'm an upcoming rapper and producer from Jamaica, following Big Stowe from some time and putting all the advice into action. Here's some more gems. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate that.
Listen, and also on a side note, if you have success stories, like Stowe and I love that shit. If you want to tell us how you took something that we talked about and applied it and how that worked, please, like, we love that kind of feedback. So tell us how this stuff is working out for you.
Absolutely.
But so, where was I? Yes, ask for help. Like maybe you want to hire a copywriter or you want someone to, like, this is a good place to say, this is not my strong suit, and reach out to people in your community to help you. In terms of actual content, think of, like, one of the things I do is when I find interesting resources, I bookmark it so that I have a running list of things like, oh, this is cool. My audience might like it. And that's like a feature that goes into, here's a resource I found, please enjoy, that goes out to my newsletter. I also highlight other people who are doing events who are aligned with what my audience wants. So for me, my newsletter is a resource and kind of like a resource directory, a monthly resource directory that people get about cool things that's happening for people who are interested in music and social justice and art. It's not so much, hey, sign up for my workshop, I'll consult for you, hire me to be your consultant. It's just a showcase of values aligned things. And then there's a couple lines at the bottom to say, if you want more, I'm available. So I use that as an example to say your newsletter doesn't even really have to be about you as much as long as it's providing value to your audience. I lost my train of thought, but those are the three really big things to think about. Collect emails, take your time, build like an not exclusive, but like think about how you can create exclusivity or membership so that your newsletter folks feel like they're part of something. I don't know. I lost my train of thought, but hopefully you all got that.
Right. Yeah, no, listen, guys, if you aren't engaging your audience and if you aren't kind of building that connection, it's not going to work. It's literally that simple. You have to connect the dots. You have to cultivate the audience. You have to be doing more than just asking people to support you when you aren't giving anything back. It's that simple.
Yeah. And again, I think the same way as we talk about different social media platforms, it takes time to build. But your newsletter, I was in a meeting recently and they asked me not how many followers I had, but how many people were subscribed to my mailing list. So that's also a form of currency that people are looking at if you're looking for partnerships or endorsements or things like that. And so as you build up your other things, newsletter is another channel through which to do it. Folks, as you're joining us, if you have any questions or thoughts, anyone wants to kind of talk about your own newsletter experiences, feel free to drop those in the comments. Stowe and I do office hours every first and third Tuesday. Every first and third Tuesday of the month. So definitely subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you have any questions or topics you want us to talk about, our handles are across your screen. DM us on Twitter, drop it in the comments here. We're like super accessible. Both of us are also available for one-on-one consulting. If you want to get a little more specific about how to apply these things that we're talking about to you and to your audience. So any last thoughts about newsletters?
When it comes to newsletters, guys, you have to understand with like a lot of the stuff that we talk about on here, it is a process. It's not all going to happen overnight. You don't have to do everything overnight. But as you kind of put in more work and you start to be more consistent, you'll start to see those numbers grow. Kind of like I mentioned in the middle of the show, I understand being discouraged if maybe people don't open the newsletter or they aren't as engaged. I get that. But keep pushing through that. With all things when it comes to especially growth, it's incremental. It's not boom, bam, bang, bam, I got 500, like off rip. Like it doesn't work like that. In almost anything. I don't care if it's social media. I don't care if it's album sales. I don't care what it is. It takes time to build all of that. Be patient with yourself, be patient with your audience, but also understand like kind of, I guess, the bigger connection between having a website and things like having a newsletter that You own those platforms. You don't own a damn thing on any of these social media platforms, and they know that. So, again, especially as times are changing and whatnot, and it sounds like we're going to be inside for upwards of 500 more days. Take this time to build up your branding. Take this time, please, to get a website, because when all this is over with, and it will end eventually, I guess. I don't know. We might be in the twilight zone at this point, but if when this is all over, you'll have a head start over all these other cats that are just kind of sitting around waiting for something to happen. Get the newsletter started, get your website up and running, so that after those 500 days, you have something built up.
And this is an important piece, is none of the things that we talk about, whether it's Instagram or Twitter or newsletter, he's grabbing the... Speaking of being imperfect, this is what it looks like to go live on YouTube from quarantine. It's time to feed Push, and so he's grabbing the dog food. None of these things that we talk about exist in isolation. So your newsletter exists in relationship to your email, to your website, in relationship to your Instagram, to your Bandcamp. Like, all these things exist in relationship with each other, because ideally what you want is you want to come across your audience's journey, their like, as they navigate their day, you want to come across them multiple times. So they go on Instagram and they see Stowe, and then they go on Twitter and they see Stowe, and then they open their email and they see Stowe, and then they're like, oh, what should I listen to? They go on YouTube and you pop up, and then they're on Spot. You want to be in all these different places so that your chances of intercepting your audience increases. And over time, that's how you become familiar. So you want to think about how these things are not just one-offs that you're throwing into the void and hoping that something explodes, but how those pieces speak together across these different platforms. Taj asks, sorry if I missed it, but did you guys already discuss how to direct people to the newsletter? I'm thinking just putting it as a branch of my Linktree or Bandcamp, but let me know if there's more. We did talk about this earlier, but just to recap, to put it in your Linktree, put it in your Bandcamp, set up a landing page, do giveaways, thinking about what are things that might be incentives to your audience are great. Anytime you have an interaction with your audience, any place that might be for you is an opportunity to direct people to the newsletter. And it's really as simple as asking. If you don't ask, no one's going to just magically throw their email address at you. So making sure that you ask and then have a system to receive it, right? Back when, if we ever do real events again, make sure you have someone at your merch table. Make sure there's a sign up, right? Make sure you ask the event promoter, hey, some of you are doing like Zoom events and stuff. Ask the event promoter or whoever's hosting for those email addresses. If they're asking you to do it for the exposure, emails is something you can negotiate. So there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different ways that you can catch emails. Do not buy emails. I don't know that I have to say this, but I feel like I do.
Don't do it.
Emails, as tempting as it is, right? We say this over and over again. What you're building, right, in this kind of way that Stowe and I are trying to guide folks, and what we guide artists to do, is building real relationships with engaged, active audiences. So really quality over quantity, so that you get a greater return on the investment that you're putting in. So shouldn't have to say it, but I'm saying it anyway. Do not buy email addresses.
Don't do it. It's
Don't
not
do
worth
it.
it.
You're wasting your money.
Quality, people. You want the quality of the relationship, not just a damn number.
So Taj, thank you for that question. Thank you everyone for hanging out with us today on Office Hours with Nora and Stowe. We'll be back 2 Tuesdays from now, the 3rd Tuesday of the month. Definitely subscribe. Hit us up if you have more questions or things you'd like to see us talk about. both Stowe and I are available for one-on-one consulting. If you support the work that we do, the Cash App and the Venmo are in the bio, and we appreciate any of that support as well. Wash your hands, stay home, keep social distancing because we want this shit to be over. But take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And we'll see you next time.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.